Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on a really fascinating journey into a profound piece of philosophical writing. We are going to break down a very thought-provoking essay titled Escape the Emotional Whirlpool. And just to set the stage right off the bat, all the content we're exploring today originates directly from the founder of Life Chain Yuan, Guide Xufeng. Through this framework, we're going to unpack Xufeng's complex ideas about the dual nature of human emotion. It's a philosophy that completely challenges how we view our feelings, our spiritual progression, and even our attachments to the past. So, get comfortable and let's explore exactly what this framework has to say about the human condition. To kick things off, it's absolutely crucial to understand that this philosophy isn't asking us to become cold, unfeeling machines. Not at all. In fact, Xufeng states right up front that humans are inherently beings of emotion, and without it, we'd basically just be stones or robots. What I find super compelling here is the premise that higher dimensional beings actually possess more emotion, not less. According to the text, when you have rich emotions and you truly cherish them, you're walking toward what is bright and beautiful. So our baseline is this. Maintaining pure, beautiful emotions is exactly what makes our life's journey warm, colorful, and fundamentally human. But here's the catch, right? Let's dive right into this paradox. If emotions are the exact thing that makes us brilliantly human and connects us to higher realms, how on earth can they also be dangerous? Why would something so beautiful be considered a source of spiritual stagnation and pain? Well, this is the central tension of Xufeng's essay. It's asking us to look at the darker side of our attachments and really question the moment our feelings stop being a source of warmth and actually start acting like a cage. Section 1. The Whirlpool Trap. Let's look at what happens when our feelings halt our forward momentum. So, Xufeng suggests that human beings are meant to constantly move forward. Life is a journey, right? But we so often find ourselves lingering, looking backward, and clinging desperately to emotions that have frankly already faded. And this right here is the emotional whirlpool. When we stay trapped in this swirling current of past feelings, we drastically delay our momentum toward the kingdom of heaven. You know how we often talk about someone being blinded by a lust for money or power? Well, Xufeng equates emotional obsession to that exact same kind of blindness. When your mind is blinded by emotion, you literally lose your sense of direction. You can't prioritize what actually matters anymore. Your perspective becomes incredibly rigid, and honestly, you become fundamentally stubborn and irrational. Section 2. 5 Levels of Humanity. Where do you stand? Let's map out this spiritual hierarchy. According to the text, humanity is divided into these 5 distinct categories: the confused person, the vulgar person, the ordinary person, the sage, and finally, the celestial. I want to zoom in on step 3 for a second, the ordinary person. In this philosophy, the defining characteristic of an ordinary person is that their life is just overwhelmingly driven by emotions. If you're deeply stuck in that emotional whirlpool we just talked about, this is exactly where you land. And the critical takeaway from Xufeng is that because the ordinary person is so weighed down by these emotional obsessions, they simply cannot reach the spiritual mountain. Think about it like this. Specific types of deep emotional attachments actively block our spiritual progression. The text argues that a rigid emotional attachment to one's nation actually prevents the realization of global harmony. In that same vein, intense religious emotion prevents the ultimate unity of all faiths. It goes even further to say that a rich, overwhelming emotional attachment to traditional family structures blocks entry into the kingdom of heaven. And intense obsessions with interpersonal relationships prevent one from becoming a celestial being. Basically, these deeply held worldly attachments are the exact roadblocks preventing ultimate spiritual unity. Section 3. Emotion as sustenance, a means to an end, not the end itself. To really bring this home, Xufeng uses a super grounded analogy. Think about eating and drinking. We absolutely need food and water to survive, just like we need emotions to be human. However, if your entire life's purpose, your only reason for getting out of bed, is just to eat and drink, you've completely lost the true meaning of being human. Emotions are the exact same way. We shouldn't forget them, and we definitely shouldn't try to eliminate them. But the source text warns that if we live our entire lives solely for our emotions, we can never expect to cross the mountains and rivers to reach that ultimate realm of freedom. Section 4. Rationality and Changing Times. Let's talk about letting go of the past. The text takes a beautifully poetic turn here, referencing the flow of water. Xufeng reminds us that metabolism is a universal law. Things absolutely must decay to make room for the new. We can't keep clinging to flowers that have already withered, right? Instead, the philosophy argues that our emotions require a continuous injection of fresh, living water. Only when the water is fresh and flowing can it be clear enough to actually reflect the light of the sky. In practical terms, this just means outlived, outdated emotions have to be allowed to disappear so we can make room for a new era of understanding. And this brings us to a really stark contrast between rationality and irrationality. Shufeng notes that time and space are constantly shifting, bringing in new eras. But the real tragedy of the emotional whirlpool is that people will use emotion, rather than rationality, to stubbornly defend their past ideas, their traditional lifestyles, or their former masters. The text points out that even when faced with the fact that certain traditions have caused immense human tragedy, people trapped in emotional obsession will still violently reject new ways of thinking. By clinging to the past out of sheer stubborn emotion, they literally become stumbling blocks for the new era. Section 5. Escape towards the future. The final ascension. We've identified the trap, so let's chart the path out. To really drive the point home, Guide Shofeng delivers a remarkably stark, uncompromising metaphor. He says, just as only pigs remain in a pig pen, only ordinary people remain adrift in the emotional whirlpool. It's a blunt wake-up call for sure. The text is saying that no matter what kind of emotion it is, if you become deeply trapped in it, you inevitably become a casualty of your own feelings. By staying in the whirlpool, you're effectively burying your own heavenly life and condemning yourself to remain just an ordinary person. But the essay doesn't end there. It actually wraps up with a highly empowering call to action. Su Feng urges the reader to cross the hurdles and mountains of worldly feelings, with the ultimate goal being to escape this whirlpool entirely. But remember what we talked about at the very beginning? This escape is definitely not about becoming unfeeling. Rather, it's about freeing yourself so you can go out and embrace the much purer, far more beautiful heavenly emotions that are waiting for you. It's about letting go of that murky, stagnant water to make room for the crystal clear source. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question. Based on Guide Shufeng's philosophy, take a second to reflect on your own life. Which of your deeply held emotions are acting as an anchor right now, stubbornly tying you to the past and preventing your growth? And which emotions are acting as fresh, flowing water, propelling you forward toward a higher state of being? It's a really challenging framework to consider, but an incredibly rewarding one to explore. Thank you so much for joining me for this breakdown. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.